Before I go further, let me urge each and every one of you to go and hit that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, so you get hard hitting social democratic commentary from yours truly, American Social Democracy. How are you? I'm fine. Except I'm a little perturbed right now. And I'm perturbed because I have been a lifelong supporter of the American Civil Liberties Union since the first moment I heard of them in 1988 when George Herbert Walker Bush was criticizing Governor Michael Dukakis of Massachusetts for being a card-carrying member of the ACLU. Well, here's the problem. The ACLU is a pro-human rights organization. And, or it was until I found out what happened recently. It may still be, we don't know. I'm trying to decide about the ACLU at this point. But the ACLU, when I did my research, I was like, why is Bush demonizing the ACLU? And I did my research on the ACLU, and my gosh, they defend free speech of everyone. They defend the right to privacy. They defend, the American people from governmental repression against them. And they are hated usually by the right-wing forces in this country. Anytime there's been a situation where individuals or whole groups of people are being harassed or oppressed, the ACLUs come along and defend it, and many times won cases for these people. And for that reason, I've always admired the ACLU. I've been a member of the ACLU in the past myself. I let my membership card lapse a few years ago. I'm just not been as politically active as I was about 20 years ago. During the early 2000s, I was always active politically. And then things happen in my life, or what have you. And this channel is sort of my way of trying to get back into the activism. And I'm going to do more than just talk when it comes to activism. But needless to say, I've always admired the ACLU. But let me give you a quick, brief history about the ACLU and how it was created and to where it's at today. During World War I, under President Woodrow Wilson, he enacted the Espionage Act of 1917, basically curtailing the free speech of people who were conscientious objectors and opponents of the war. The Espionage Act basically cracked down on socialists, trade unionists, immigrants, Quakers, Jehovah's Witnesses, and other conscientious objectors. And a lot of people were put in prison for refusing to support the war effort or speaking publicly against the war. One of my big heroes, Eugene Victor Debs, for example, was sentenced to in prison for a moderate anti-war speech. I believe was in Canton, Ohio, somewhere like that. And that's where he made his famous speech when being convicted. While there is that he was part of the working class. I forgot how the quote goes, but I talk about how he's part of the working class and being of the criminal element, that he's of it. And I'm sorry I can't give you the exact quote right this moment. But anyway, he served several years in prison until Warren G. Harding, the next president after Woodrow Wilson, pardoned him. And Victor Berger, who was the first socialist member of Congress, was also put in prison for being opposed to the war. And there was a glitch in the Supreme Court. They found that the sentencing was unconstitutional. He was released from prison too, and all that. But by 1920, the National Civil Liberties Bureau changed its name to the American Civil Liberties Union. And there's been many famous cases that's associated with the ACLU. The Scopes trial, which features or the subject of evolution of 1925, Paul versus Alabama, 1932, known as the Scottsboro trial. And that was where a white woman accused 8 black men of raping her, and it turned out that it was not true. But many of these folks, these young men that were convicted, ended up decades in prison. It was an act of injustice if there ever was one. Let's see. There's Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, that desegregated public schools. There's Griswold versus Connecticut, which protected the right to privacy of individuals wanting to get access to birth control. The Miranda versus Arizona, 1966, whereby law enforcement are supposed to review your rights when you're being arrested. Furman versus Georgia, 1972, for example, where the death penalty was actually abolished in the United States for a few short years. From 1972 to 1977, there was the death penalty was no longer in existence in the United States. For 5 years, the United States did not have a death penalty officially. It would be considered by the United Nations as an abolitionist state, meaning a country that has no death penalty. And that was very short-lived. Unfortunately, in 1976, Supreme Court declared the death penalty constitutional, which they're full of crap saying that, because I oppose capital punishment. There's Roe versus Wade, 1973. We all know about the abortion rights ruling. 1977 was a difficult time for the ACLU because they represented the National Socialist Party of America, a neo-Nazi group, their right to free speech in the town of Skokie, Illinois, which had a high percentage of Jewish Holocaust survivors. And the ACLU said free speech is free speech, and they appointed a Jewish lawyer to represent the neo-Nazis, and they won under free speech grounds. But once the ruling took place, the neo-Nazis did not make it to Skokie, Illinois, because they were ideological groups as diverse as the Progressive Labor Party, which is a Maoist organization, all the way to the Jewish Defense League, were ready to go and crack some skulls against these neo-Nazi assholes, and they knew that, and they did not dare to walk into Skokie. But technically, on free speech grounds, the ACLU were correct to defend their free speech rights. Texas versus Johnson, 1989. A man, I'm presuming his name was Johnson, went to the Republican convention. He was with the Revolutionary Communist Party, a Maoist organization, to try to burn the American flag, and was arrested, whatever. With the Supreme Court ruling, flag desecration became a constitutionally protected free speech right. And today, as repulsive as it is to see people burning the flag or what have you, it is a free speech right, and the Supreme Court was correct again. Oberfell versus Hodges, 2015, was the famous Supreme Court case that basically said that same-sex marriage is constitutionally protected right. So now same-sex couples can get married in the United States, it's the ACLU that was basically responsible for this. The reason I'm mentioning all these cases is all these cases the ACLU's been involved with, and they actually expanded rights for everybody. And so the ACLU's been very valuable for decades, especially since the time of Reagan, with the culture wars that's been on overdrive, with reactionary forces such as the Christian right, that trying to force their force their religious point of view onto the rest of the American population. Just started under Reagan. It went on overdrive under George W. Bush, and Trump continued it on to this day. And so during these times, the ACLU actually had an increase of membership. Had an increase of membership in the 1980s because Reagan, who was not an evangelical himself, embraced the political evangelical movement here in the United States, and which was pretty much, there's nothing wrong with being an evangelical Christian in itself, but when you're trying to take your religious point of view and politicize it and basically shoving your beliefs to the whole American population, that's where it becomes problematic. And the ACLU said, no, we're going to draw the line in the sand. We're not going to let this happen. Under George W. Bush, as a response to 9/11, George W. Bush administration enacted the Patriot Act and started basically spying on all of us. And the ACLU were like, no, you're not going to go and have the U.S. government spy on everybody. So the ACLU were opposed to the Bush-Cheney effort domestically when it comes to the surveillance programs, and also the ACLU were involved with the anti-torture campaign that was going on in Guantanamo Bay. Rush to the year 2017 with the events that happened with Charlottesville, where the alt-right had their Unite the Right rally and their anti-racist activists were out there. Now the ACLU were correct to say that these people from the alt-right, as horrible as they are, have a right to freedom of speech. Do not defend their ideology, their point of view. And they had a lot of backlash out of this, and also, they had an influx of money and new activists this time around during the Trump years, and with the Trump derangement syndrome also affecting the ACLU. The ACLU are basically taking a look at themselves in the mirror, so to speak, and debating whether they should continue supporting free speech or not. Now, here's the thing. Donald Trump, the Trump derangement syndrome. And I wish the ACLU, if they're thinking about abandoning free speech, listen to me. Donald Trump opposes freedom of speech. Donald Trump wants to harmonize the libel laws of the United States with that of Great Britain, whereby a public figure can actually sue anybody in the media or even a nobody that speaks ill of such a public person. I mean, Donald Trump basically sued Bill Maher for making a joke about him, comparing him to an orangutan. And so this is the kind of mentality that we're dealing with when we deal with Donald Trump. And so, we need to defend freedom of speech to defend ordinary people from tyrants like Donald Trump. And and that's the thing right there. And the ACLU has had that long tradition of supporting absolute freedom of speech. And, we're talking about friends of the ACLU over the years. We're talking about today. I mean, we're talking about the lead singer of the Dead Kennedys, former lead singer of the Dead Kennedys, Jello Biafra, noted free speech absolutist. Left-wing linguistic professor Noam Chomsky, also known as a libertarian socialist or an anarchist. He's an absolute supporter of free speech. Bernie Sanders of Vermont is a supporter of free speech. Nadine Strossen, who was once the former president of the American Civil Liberties Union, also a supporter of free speech. Al Sharpton, a strong supporter of freedom of speech. Glenn Greenwald, supporter of freedom of speech. Even down to online left-wing personalities, commentators like Jimmy Dore, Kyle Kalinske, all traditionally supporters of freedom of speech, and all I don't know if they're all with the ACLU. I know that Chomsky is, but the thing is that the ACLU, the free speech has had a long tradition on the left, and I see it kind of being abandoned by the left. And I say that during this time, we need freedom of speech more than ever. Look what's going on around the country with these anti-BDS laws. They're basically criminalizing opposition people, from criminalizing the freedom of speech against Israel, where they're forcing people to, like state employees, to sign pro-Israel loyalty oaths, like they're doing in places like Texas, where a speech teacher, a speech therapist, lost her job after 20 years. A Palestinian woman who lost her job after 20 years because she would not sign a pro-Israel loyalty oath. This is the kind of thing that's going on in this country, and we need to preserve freedom of speech, because if we don't preserve freedom of speech, this is my warning to the left, and the ACLU being part of the left, this is my warning. I'm not a hot shot lawyer, but I know what I know, and what I know is, when you crack down on freedom of speech, yeah, you're going to be cracking down on freedom of speech for reactionary, right-wing, bad people. Yay. Honestly, but you know what's going to happen? Somehow the pendulum's going to swing right back, and it's going to go after the left. It's already happening against the left as it is. Look what's going on in various states. A lot of Republican governors do not like the Black Lives Matter protests. They do not like the Antifa protests. And so they're coming up with legislation in various state legislatures that will criminalize protests by basically saying, well, if one person caused a little bit of trouble, we can basically arrest everybody. That's what's going on. And what's his name? DeSantis down in Florida came up with a horrible law that basically gives the right for people who are driving and they're being blocked by protesters. It basically gives the right of that driver, if that driver disagrees with the ideology of the people they're blocking a road, to run over them. I'm not making that up. And also in Kentucky, it's now illegal to go and talk smack to a police officer. So we are having an assault against the First Amendment by the right wing, and with the left wing people cheering censorship. Don't say I didn't warn you, when we're all going to be criminalized by these right-wing people trying to, as I said, they're trying to shut us all up. I want to stress that. We need to have that stress. So, and as I said before, freedom of speech to the left, freedom of speech is your best friend. You may not like who the freedom of speech being equally applied to people you disagree with most. And I understand that. But for our own preservation, for our own survival, and in the name of public relations and espousing our wonderful causes, we got to be on the side of freedom of speech. That is the hill I will die on. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree, well, comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we're the muckrakers of our time. And again, once again, I'm asking each and every one of you to subscribe to this channel and to basically hit that notification bell so you're kept up to date, as I said earlier, with hard-hitting social democratic commentary. And until next time, I am American Social Democracy. Peace. Class struggle yesterday, class struggle today, class struggle tomorrow, and class struggle until we achieve full economic and social justice for all. There we go.